Hello, and welcome to Rosa Laura. If this is your first time visiting the channel, it's so lovely to meet you. And if you're returning, it's so wonderful to have you back. My name is Rosa, I'm a digital artist, and today I am working on a piece of art just for me. This is going to be an illustration of Knaphe Exley, my D&D 5th edition original character for the campaign that I am in. Though it's not her in her usual form or her usual way. Knaphe is a Fey-touched ranger, as those who have been to the channel before must be very well aware. And usually that manifests in more subtle ways as far as magic and effects for her. Her aspect is the first frost, which is referenced in one of my other speed paints, which is even called Night of the First Frost. And I wanted to do something a little bit different for her design, just for fun. I had played with the idea of making Knaphe's so-called curse be a little bit more physically affecting. This was a very early idea, and eventually I drifted away from it because I wanted the effects of her condition to be a bit more subtle. I wanted them not to be immediately perceived, but to create a little feeling of dissonance as, someone would come and talk to her and then realize, oh, her eyes are not a normal color. She's not quite what I expected her to be. Instead of being able to look at her from a distance and be like, oh, that's not human. That's not all the way human. Something is wrong here. But I am such a sucker for inhuman designs, beastly designs, and so the idea of questing beast Knaphe has been around for a very long time. The runish ideal, Rune being the place where Knaphe is from, which is heavily inspired off of medieval England. They're really into knights, they're really into questing, really into slaying beasts. And so the idea of Knaphe going from someone who would be the quester to something that would be hunted was a very interesting idea to me that I wanted to explore. In designing the questing beast version of her, I took some inspiration from different descriptions and different ideas. That one famous depiction of a questing beast that looks kind of like a giraffe comes to mind. I love the really long neck on that one piece. But I wanted to marry together a couple of different elements that have been used to describe Knaphe. Knaphe has been described as deer-like. She has very high dexterity. She is very acrobatic. She traverses the forest with ease. And I wanted her, if I'm going to do something with deer, I want her to have the antlers. What's the point of having a fun deer motif if you're not going to use the antlers? But she also has these sort of wolf-like elements. She, for example, is very loyal to her family, or is very loyal to her family when she was with them. She very much enjoys traveling in a pack, even if she, as a ranger at times, can be a little bit more prone to maybe wanting a little bit more time alone, but I've worked really hard to make Knaphe a very social character. And she also, especially by me, I think of her kind of as a bit of a rabbit as well, though I didn't get to incorporate that as much into this design. And of course, questing beast, if you're going to be out in the middle of the forest and you're encountering a beast, hopefully there's something unicorn-coded about that as well. For this iteration of questing beast Knaphe, I went with the antlers of a stag, the ears of a wolf, and the tail of a unicorn. I am super excited about the way that things started shaping up. I love her expression. It looks very intense to me. Knaphe has this habit when I draw her of wanting to look at the camera. She definitely is a character who doesn't shy away from confrontation, and she's not afraid to look upset with the people around her, whether that's the NPCs, the player characters, or the viewer in a piece of art, and that definitely comes to show here. the marking in the center of her forehead. I played around with it being a unicorn horn briefly, but I just thought it was a lot. It was really top heavy, and I already wanted to give her some antlers. So I ended up making that more of a diamond-shaped mark, very much inspired by Lady Amalthea from The Last Unicorn. I love that movie, by the way. I didn't actually get to see it until I was a little bit older. I think I was about maybe 15 or 16 when I saw the movie for the first time, and I absolutely loved it. Loved The Last Unicorn, love the designs, I love the way the film is animated, and I love the cover of Last Unicorn by Danny Sexbang. I think it is legitimately better than the original, and it's kind of a mainstay on my Spotify playlist. So I love it, truly. But putting a unicorn horn on Knaphe seemed a little bit much. What I did play around with for a little bit, which went by very fast in the time lapse, but I'll put up now, are the different ideas for the outfits. I wanted to have a couple different color palettes, and I was like, well, I could just put her in her usual gold, crimson, and blue color scheme for the Exley house, but I wanted to try something a little different. I have 4 different palettes that I wanted to choose from, and I ended up actually fully rendering 2 of those palettes, the classic Exley palette, which people really liked, and the First Frost palette, which is the one with the silvers and blues. I ended up changing the colors on the First Frost palette a little bit from what they were originally, kind of shifting them into a little bit of a less saturated area, but I really like how the rendering on both sets of fabric really turned out. The shading on this piece is a little bit inspired by Darkest Dungeon. My shading isn't nearly as harsh as the game's shading, but I really like how it turned out all the same. I wanted something very confrontational. I wanted something that looked dramatic. Knaphe has a tendency to want to look that way. I find that when I draw her, she really does enjoy that sort of drama. So I'm glad that, as far as I'm concerned, in the way the piece turned out, I think that was executed pretty well. Of course, Knaphe cannot be without Silvery Little Thing, so he had to be added into this picture. I like to think that maybe she is confronting her parents, maybe she's at a party or another gathering, and she has shown up in this beastly form and is ready to make everybody confront the daughter that they left behind and refused to recognize as a member of their family after her terrible Fey-touched transformation. As we sweep over the picture, I have it changed between the Frost palette and the original Exley palette. Please tell me down in the comments, which version do you like better? Is there one of these samples that you liked more that you're like, I wish you had done this one? Let me know. And of course, thank you to my patrons who helped me make art, but especially Banjo, Confocal Clips, Deator, and Firepit. Thank you, my Bloons patrons, so much. And thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed the Speedpaint video today. Please like, subscribe if you like there's something else on the screen from me, and if you would like to, please support me on Patreon. And remember, everything's gonna be okay. See you next time.